All right, well, welcome everyone to the Energy Star Water Management System, Not a Wet Blanket. This course is approved for many of our conventional continuing education units, including Lead AP Homes for this particular one, as well as the US Passive House CPHC CEU as well as the Health, Welfare, and Safety HSW through AIA, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. This course is brought to you by the nonprofit the GreenHome Institute, and today I'll be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the executive director here. The biggest takeaway here is the fact that we have a lot of focus on energy efficiency with our buildings and our homes, and a lot of focus on indoor air quality. But sometimes we leave out good water management strategies to really stop water and moisture from penetrating the building from the top all the way to the bottom, to help not cause other issues in regards to energy efficiency or health. And then also, how do those fit into the LEED rating system? So that's kind of what we want to cover here today. And I do want to thank our top tier sponsor, T-Stud. What is the T-Stud? It's a game-changing technology that uses a more cost-effective and conventional approach to keeping heat in the winter and heat out in the summertime. It's a thermally broken insulated wall stud assembly for use in exterior and party walls. The T-Stud is engineered building product that uses 2 lumber members, an internal truss system, and frothed-in-place closed-cell foam that has a global warming potential of less than 1 and is EPA compliant for 2020. The T-Stud provides a 99% complete thermal break through the wall. With just one product, the T-Stud raises the bar on 6 major construction concerns: thermal break, structural strength, wind load, sound transmission, fire life safety, mold, and termites. The T-Stud isn't that complicated. It's quite easy to replace a traditional 2x lumber with a T-Stud with little to no additional training. Plus, it can be used as pretty much all the studs throughout the wall assembly, and they're just coming up with both floor and roofing assemblies as well. You can also go naked. The bare naked T-Stud cuts costs and can be used up to 2 stories with the insulation of your choice. You don't have to just use the spray foam. It comes with cellulose, fiberglass, mineral wool. I guess even horsehair is another option that you can put in there. T-Stud is the 2019 Green Builder Media Sustainability Award winner for structural ingenuity. And you can check them out at tstud.com. I also want to thank our second tier sponsor, Water Furnace International. Water Furnace uses the natural heating and cooling of the earth through ground source heat pump technology, which creates the most energy efficient heating and cooling on the planet, as well as can create hot water. Anything you can think of: forced air radiant combo, boiler replacement, dual fuel, and even more. There are different types of installs, so you can always check with your heating and cooling contractor and make sure that the correct install and the most efficient and affordable one is right for your project. And you can also check them out at learn more about the importance of geothermal at www.geothermal4all. All right, so our main speaker, Dean, here was unfortunately not feeling so well today. He is on the line and is going to help with the chat, but was unable to speak. So we really appreciate Elliot Siebert here for stepping in last minute. He's the environmental specialist in EPA's Energy Star residential branch. He focuses on quality assurance and technical development for the Energy Star Certified Homes program. A mechanical engineer by training, has thorough knowledge of building science, and was a HERS rater and quality assurance designee for 8 years before joining EPA. So with that, Elliot, we're going to hand it over to you, and please take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brett. I know that Dean was looking forward to this, and he is on the line, but you guys will get to hear mostly my voice for this presentation. So again, thanks for inviting us. We're really happy to be giving this presentation, because I think the water management system in our program is still something that people see as being a big barrier to Energy Star certification, but in reality, builders are probably meeting most or all of these requirements already. So I don't think it has to be as big of a barrier as maybe it's perceived. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll agree. So with that, let's get into the agenda here. We're going to start with 3 reasons these requirements are so valuable to meet. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my pointer there. Okay, there we go. So sorry, let me back up. So we're going to start with 3 reasons these requirements are so valuable to me, right? Like why do we care about them? Then we'll do a quick rundown of what the requirements are and how they fit into the Energy Star program. Third, we'll show you which requirements might apply to a typical home. So kind of do a case study and put it into practice. And then fourth, we'll dive a bit deeper into some critical details from the requirements to again, really get into the details. And at the end, I'm going to turn it back over to Brett, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Also, I will say, feel free to ask questions along the way. If we'll try to address them if I can catch them in time. Otherwise, we'll come back to anything that we miss at the end. Okay, so before we kind of get into it, I thought we'd take a poll here to get everybody's impression of the water management system builder requirements, which is kind of a mouthful, by asking a few polling questions here. The first question is, how difficult will it be to complete the water management system builder requirements? So again, this is just your impression of the difficulty here. Do you think it's going to be easy, hard, or are you not sure? And so I think we're going to pull up a poll here. You should see it on the side of your taskbar. And we're going to leave that open. Okay, so sorry, I just want to confirm, are we closed on that poll?
Yes, yeah, I'm sure if you were able to see it or not.
Yep, I see it. Okay, so let's see. We have a good amount of people saying it is, it's very small for me. What do we have? 24%, 26% saying it's easy, and 68% saying not sure. So only 5% saying it's hard, which is awesome because I think that's pretty accurate. I think most of the stuff is pretty easy. So for those who aren't sure, hopefully that's kind of the impression you'll have by the end of this webinar. Okay, so we'll go into the next question then. So the next question is basically, how much do you agree with this statement? The requirements of the water management system are valuable for homes. Do you think that's generally true, not true, or not sure? Great, so we have 63% people saying it's generally true, nobody saying it's not true, and 38% not sure. So in other words, most of the audience agrees that it is valuable, which I think is definitely true. And again, we'll have some education throughout here for those of you who aren't sure. Okay, so that's really great to hear. That's a great starting point. Before we even talk about what the requirements are and what exactly you have to do, let's start with the value of doing it. So, right, if you don't believe in the value of it, then it's harder to justify meeting these requirements at all. So we need to kind of know why it's important. And when we talk about the water management system, I want to be clear that we're not talking about low flow showers or faucets or something like that, right? This isn't about water conservation. We're talking about a collection of building details that will help manage the moisture on the outside and inside of the home. So why is it important? I'm going to talk about three main reasons, and the first is improved durability. If you build a new home, we would want it to last for a while, decades or more, right? And so to be durable, the materials need to be moisture managed. Now, if we think about an inefficient home, there's a lot not to like. It doesn't have a lot of insulation in the walls. It's got lots of air infiltration. And so if it's kind of built like a barn, it's not necessarily going to be a particularly comfortable home to live in. But one thing that it has going for it is that if there's a leak into the wall, a water leak that's getting into the wall, it's going to dry out fairly fast. The reason for that really is the more heat that's moving through that wall is going to sort of act as a drying force. And so if you've got a lot of air moving in that wall, and if you don't have any insulation in that wall that's moving heat through that wall, that's all going to dry out moisture pretty quickly. And so it means that you've actually got a pretty wide tolerance for error in terms of letting water in. And so it can be kind of a saving grace for details that aren't done 100% right. So let's compare this to an efficient home, which is what we would like to build today and what code says we have to build today. So in an efficient home, we have a lot more insulation in the wall and a lot less air infiltration. And that means if this wall gets wet, it's going to take a lot longer to dry out. For the most part, that water is going to stay there, again, for a much longer time period, and maybe it will never dry out. Another analogy that I can kind of give you to think about it is, what happens when you go to the gym and you put your sweaty gym clothes or a wet swimsuit into a plastic bag, and you're rushing home and you forget it there overnight, and it doesn't dry out, right? And then you open that bag the next morning. It's probably not going to be a particularly pleasurable smell, and you know that there's some problems with that, right? And so that's essentially what's happening in these walls. So basically the takeaway is we got away with a lot of stuff in the past that once we're building an efficient home, all of a sudden it becomes a much greater durability concern, right? So durability is certainly top of mind. The second thing, I'm sorry, I missed some animations there. Okay, the second reason is related to number one, and that's reducing liability. So if you build a home and it's supposed to be energy efficient and it isn't, that's not awesome. It can mean higher bills and less comfort for the home buyer. But if a home's water management system is incomplete, that's a much more serious problem. And the cost to fix it can be a lot higher as well. So probably everyone on the webinar has heard at least one story about new homes with moisture problems of some kind. And we don't want our Energy Star builders to fall into that category. And the water management system builder requirements is really meant to help reduce that risk. The third reason, which I find pretty convincing, is that it's code, or basically all of it is. So you're supposed to be doing it anyways. You can trace nearly every one of the requirements on this list directly to a code requirement. And we've really tried to mirror those requirements as much as possible. Okay, so if it's part of code, then why are we including it in the Energy Star program, right? Like, aren't you already required to do it? Yeah, you are. But as we've discussed, these are just extra important to get right in the kind of high performance homes that we're building. So, I think we know, unfortunately, code is not consistently enforced, and sometimes these items are overlooked. Now, the other thing is they're in code, but they are kind of scattered all around in different sections in code. So I think the other thing we're doing here is consolidating them all into one single page in plain language that if you're just coming to these requirements, kind of highlights the most important things all, on one page. So I think that hopefully, again, makes compliance a little bit easier. So those are the three reasons for the requirements in the first place. Hopefully you find that compelling. Again, just to recap, following the Energy Star water management system builder requirements will help improve the durability of your homes, reduce your liability, and help you meet code. So that's why we're doing it. Now, what do these requirements actually consist of? Let me give you a quick overview. All of the requirements fit onto one page. It's the builder's responsibility to ensure that these are met for every home. So the builder must develop a process that works for them. So, for example, and this isn't this isn't inclusionary, but just for example, they should probably integrate these into the scope of work. They should probably require the site supervisor to verify each requirement, and they may want to contract with a rater or a third party to ensure compliance, or at least spot check it. I think you'll see that a lot of this stuff is kind of conceptually intuitive and makes sense. It really comes down to the details of applying it where it gets a little tricky. So sometimes it does certainly help to have a professional on board who's specifically looking for these items. A home that doesn't meet these requirements cannot be certified. So these are non-optional requirements. But in terms of how we're including them in the program, functionally, note that no paperwork needs to be completed or collected by the rater for each individual home. So this is a change from when we first launched version 3. A lot of partners told us that collecting the piece of paper itself was not adding a lot of value, and so we've limited that paperwork burden. So just to recap there, these are absolutely program requirements. They're absolutely required. The burden is on the builder rather than the rater in this case. Although, it's certainly recommended, again, to think about bringing the rater in as a professional to help the builder keep an eye on these things. And lastly, I'm focusing here on Energy Star's Certified Homes program, right, which is our low-rise program, a single-family program. But I wanted to point out that if you're working on a project for the Energy Star multifamily new construction program, the requirements are identical, except for a couple minor variations to address garage slabs. So everything you're hearing here today will be directly applicable to that program as well. And I'm going to hand it over to Brett at the end, and so he's going to tell you how it applies to LEED. And I think in general, this is going to be a pretty consistent list of concepts you'll see throughout the programs. Okay, so there's 4 sections to the requirements, and we're going to walk through them from the top of the house to the bottom, which obviously is the direction that the water falls due to gravity. So on the roof, we want to ensure that the rainwater gets to the edge and off. So that means extra protections at valleys and penetrations, at roof wall intersections, and at the perimeter of the roof in cold climates. And it means gutters and downspouts or an equivalent system, unless you have a slab on grade home or your soil is not expansive or collapsible. On the walls, we want to make sure that rainwater gets from the top to bottom and then away. So that means a continuous drainage plane, paying extra attention to windows and doors, and flashing and weep holes at the bottom to kick the water out and away. And at the foundation, we want to make sure you have moisture protection at the exterior surface of the foundation walls, beneath slabs and in the crawl spaces, that surfaces are sloped away from the house, plus a drain tile, except in slab homes, so that you can move that ground moisture away from the home. And finally, a sump pump cover and no vapor barrier on the inside of below grade walls. So I know that's a lot. We're going to come back to it. And the third item is there's a section on building materials to address bathrooms, high moisture or water damaged materials, HVAC condensate, and in warmer climates, vapor barriers on interior walls. So a little bit of a grab bag there. So that's it. It's a common sense collection of 21 very achievable details. And think about how important each of these are to the house and how expensive they would be to correct after the fact, right? And when you think about each of the 21 details as we go through them, I think you'll probably agree there is not a single one of them you would say is not important and you wouldn't want in your own house. And even though there are 21 items, not all of them are going to apply to every home. So let's walk through a typical home as an example to see what you might have to do in practice.
Thanks for watching. Please continue to watch the next part of the session to complete the course and get your continuing education credits. Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.